Pedophiles have long used the internet, but unlike the forums and file transfer services that cater to people who have interest in illicit content, Instagram doesn't merely host these activities, its algorithms promote them.
Let's move on to a little lighter subject of pedophilia.
Graphic.
So apparently, Instagram has a real problem with child pornography, you were saying?
I mean, this is a classic indoctrination tactic, is you first start with desensitization. If something is very, very taboo, and it has been for...
I blame Ariana Grande, by the way.
Why is that?
Because she started off as just like a little cute girl singing, and then all of a sudden it went into that that weird, like, she looked like a little girl sexualized thing going on, and she kept looking younger and younger as she went on.
Was it just her, or was it?
No, I feel like that's a common.
I feel like that's a common thing.
It's happening more now. It's more,
and with the help of major companies like Meta, which owns not only Facebook but also Instagram. And so we have a report, and I know you guys are saying, "What? Pedophiles on Instagram? That sounds like some Alex Jones shit." Dane and David. No, this is a report that was conducted by the Wall Street Journal, and the Wall Street. I'm just going to read this this first paragraph, and then I'm going to give you some more examples. But this article will be linked down in the show notes, down in the comments. Feel free to read it and comment on yourself. Again, comment, help us with the algorithm, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, opening paragraph of this article kind of encapsulates the whole thing. Quote, Instagram's recommendation algorithms linked and promoted a, quote, vast network of pedophiles, end quote, seeking illegal underage...
Can we get like a definition of what a vast group of pedophiles is?
Apparently anybody who used hashtags that I'm going to discuss later. Okay. I don't know. That could be 100 people. That could be 1 million people. I couldn't tell you.
Define vast is what I'm asking. Like, I know it's large, but...
back to the article, quote, seeking illegal underage sexual content and activity, according to the report. These algorithms also advertise the sale of illicit, quote, child sex material on the platform, the outlet further said. The report is based on an investigation into child pornography and Meta-owned platform done by the Wall Street Journal and researchers at Stanford University and the University of Massachusetts Amherst. So again, not, some backwater fourth JUCO, middle of Louisiana university, Stanford and University of Massachusetts Amherst. Back to the article. Quote, some accounts even allowed buyers to commission specific acts or arrange meetups.
There used to be a television program with Chris Hansen. That's all they were doing.
Whatever happened to him?
He needs to come back, apparently. He needs to get on the gram because just the act of pursuing that is a felony. No ifs, ands, or buts. So if you were inundated with felons on your platform, shouldn't you be held accountable? But you held everyone with an opinion on COVID and vaccines accountable not moments ago.
As a matter of fact, I want to say a current big name in the upcoming presidential election was completely removed off of Instagram a couple years ago. I'm talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think he got his page back on Instagram recently. I don't know. But yeah, for his comments on the whole C-word time period, he was removed from Instagram. And again, this is because he had the audacity to say something that wasn't 100% in line with whatever the prevailing narrative was.
So what does this say about being in line with the prevailing narrative?
Yeah.
If they're allowing it.
What is the prevailing narrative related to pedophilia? And this, again, this is not general pride stuff and letting adults do what they want. This is the specific narrow issue of pedophilic behavior. What is the prevailing narrative according to Instagram on that topic? Should we read on?
Please.
These are two quotes from the report. Pedophiles have long used the internet, but unlike the forums and file transfer services that cater to people who have interest in illicit content, Instagram doesn't merely host these activities, its algorithms promote them.
Ooh.
Next quote, Instagram connects pedophiles and guides them to content sellers via recommendation systems that excel at linking those who share niche interests. And how do they do this? They do this with hashtags, and these were just a couple of the hashtags, again, prevalent on Instagram amongst people searching for this kind of stuff. Hashtag examples included hashtag pedo whore, hashtag preteen sex, and hashtag pedobait. So if you were looking for illicit material, you could go on Instagram, type a comment or whatever, and or go in and search for the hashtag pedo whore, preteen sex, or pedobait, and that would link you to, as the report says, content sellers of that stuff and other individuals who share your, quote, niche interests. I mean, that kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't have any words. That speaks for itself. I can't. It's fucking gross. It's really gross. Now, and I don't know. Back to you.
Now, just to put the tinfoil hat on just a little bit. I don't think it's a million miles removed from sanity to suggest the following. In light of the Epstein stuff,
if this is the biggest sting what I will say is that if this is the biggest sting operation ever, kudos to Instagram, but it doesn't look like it's panning out that way. It doesn't look
like that's what it is.
So,
in light of the Epstein stuff, and in light of the big names, powerful names on that flight log, which just mysteriously, after all these years, have not come out. I wonder why. In light of that situation and what we talked about in the lead off to the Culture Corner segment about in order to indoctrinate, you first have to desensitize people from their taboos. And is it outside the realm of possibility that when you have a major platform like Meta doing this kind of stuff, when you have, the Balenciaga thing from a couple months ago where, they got in trouble for their ads of putting kids in S&M gear and stuff like that. When you have these major brands doing this and pushing this stuff, and they always just retract and say, oops, our bad, minor oversight.
We're trying to be edgy.
No pun intended. Is it crazy to suggest that a desensitization campaign is ongoing because the powers that be, the ones that should be in trouble already from the Epstein list, among others, know that their secrets aren't long for this world in terms of being secrets. And so we just need to make this a perfectly acceptable thing. We need to stop referring to people as pedophiles and just call them minor attracted persons.
And they need to be protected because they're an at-risk population.
Yeah,
the Seattle board member said.
They're a sexual orientation just like anybody else. And a matter of fact, they're a minority sexual orientation. So they're oppressed.
They're not minor attracted people. They're predators. That's what pedophiles are. That's straight what it is. So I don't know.
Go to our graves fighting that fight.
Listen, I'll give you as much leeway as you possibly can until you start fighting for the rights of pedophiles. And I'm not down with that.
See, and this is common sense to most people, but I'm going to speak to the 0.01% of people who haven't made this connection yet. Let's step outside of the touchy subject of sex for a second, and let's go to a completely mundane topic like the ability to enter contracts. The reason why in law you as a child cannot enter into a binding contract, meaning if a 10-year-old goes down to buy a car and the car dealership writes the contract and the 10-year-old signs and whatever, and the kid quits paying for the car, and the car dealership tries to come back saying, nope, look, signature, he owes me, blah, blah, blah. A court is going to throw that out because, again, in the law, children cannot consent to contracts. Why? What's the rationale behind that? Again, you have the whole, their brains aren't developed. They're impressionable. They make rash decisions without thinking them through. All of the things that we understand about the normal character of children. And this makes them vulnerable to being taken advantage of, even in a completely mundane context, like whether they can, sign, their name on a dotted line and be held responsible for living up to that contract. That's the reason why the law doesn't allow that. Now, retreating back to the touchier subject of sex, it should be abundantly clear why laws are established to protect vulnerable members of society, and there's almost no member in society more vulnerable than children. So this idea that we can just circumvent that entire situation and make it socially acceptable for adults to be engaging in any sort of sexual activity, even if it's just purchasing content of minors, is inherently exploitative. There is no way to make that non-exploitative. There just isn't. So trying to gray area this thing and recategorize them as minor attracted persons and all that kind of stuff, it is just covering your tracks after you've already done something wrong, which again, tinfoil hat. Desensitize the population to the fact that this stuff goes on because a lot of powerful, famous people have already been doing it. And their secret, if not fully out of the bag, to any of us paying attention, it is. But to the vast majority of people, it's like, that's probably just some conspiracy theory. But when that becomes fully out of the bag to the mass population, their very safety depends on a society looking at that and saying, they're just minor attracted persons. No big deal. No big deal. That's the most reasonable explanation I can come up for why a platform like Instagram would allow something like this. It's not just a minor oversight, no matter what they say. And it is predatory behavior. Period, full stop.
And we won't move on that.